Randy, here we go, sir.
Okay, ready? Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call our meeting to order. To start, we'll do our flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to do item B, which is the approval of the meeting, but I would like to move item D to right after H, just so that we can get everything approved ahead of time, and then we can do the presentations at the end. Can I have a motion for that? Christy and Chance. All in favor? Okay, we'll get on to item E, which is personnel. I need a motion to accept personnel. Lori, and second, Chance. All in favor? Item F is the consent agenda. We'll do F1 through 12. Can I get a motion to accept F1? Mud? And second, Kenny? All in favor? Okay, we'll go on to item G is student reports. We'll start off with Mr. Stevens. Do you have anything for us?
So on October 14th, we'll be having our headliner Coming Home Homecoming event. This will consist of a short parade sticking to the main campus of Paul B. Moore and Millard Hawk. And we'll also have our popular Red Hawk Rally returning this year, which is a trunk or treat style event. We'll be having a meeting on Thursday to confirm all the details, which will begin a month-long media campaign throughout the community to accrue participation for the event. Additionally, we are working on a spirit day for the whole district, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys will all be there.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Board member reports. Does anybody have anything? That's all I know is that Mrs. Wood and myself, we made Tom be our little drive with Miss Daisy and went to all the school buildings on the first day of school. And he actually cleaned his back of his truck for me, you know, so. But the schools looked great, and it was good to see everybody. Actually, all of them went without a hitch, in my opinion, and it just was outstanding. You know, and you know, I commend everybody that was involved, all the way from custodians to the superintendent. Everything was great.
Yeah, it was a great morning. Glad to see all the happy faces coming into the buildings, and yeah, it was good.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Calabufo.
We'll just move it around. Did we just put?
We did item G, and then we're going to go back to D.
Okay.
So you're on item G.
So we have to do H.
He wants you to do the superintendent.
I'll do it right now then, perfect. Just quickly, I just want to echo what both what Lori and Randy had just said. I want to thank them. They came around, we went to every building, literally spent 4 hours. We hit all 6 schools. Thrilled at the excitement that the teachers provided, the students, all of the units. And again, I have to echo, the custodians and maintenance crews did a phenomenal job. The buildings were amazing. And just a level of excitement. And you even see it like I was watching part of the JV volleyball and the varsity volleyball, and the girls are just so happy to be able to be out there and their parents watching them. Everyone said that we were going to return to normalcy, and we're doing that. The state has given us the ability to do that. I put a letter out to parents because we did have a little bit of a spike. When I say a little bit of a spike, right now there's only currently 8 that we know of positive cases. There were a total of 14, but from when the symptoms had started, those kids are now be able to come back. That's pretty good when you have about 700 staff members and 3,700 students. At the end of the day, the state has given us the reins and allowed us to be able to say, look, barring someone that has COVID, they're out for 5 days, they're back on the 6th day as long as they wear a mask for the 10 and that they didn't have a fever on day 5. And so we lose staff members, then we get them back in. We lose some students, but then we get them back in. So we're living with COVID. I'm just thrilled that it's not dictating how we should run our programs. We have a great staff, and I'm thrilled to support a Board of Education, and I really feel, and I know that people sitting at that table over there put endless amount of hours over the summer to make sure that this year was going to run smoothly, and it's very exciting. So I have students at the high school saying, hey, you approved the overnight trip before? Yep, I did. This is great. Sports are running again. It's such a great feeling. We've been in all the buildings. You see the students' smiles. You see the teachers excited. Are there little roadblocks here and there with transportation in the first week of school? Of course. No matter what we do, there always are. But John Pierce and the transportation department have done a phenomenal job. And again, that's putting in 12 to 14-hour days because they realize they've got to pick these students up. A route was wrong. And I think it's also important to notice that we have about 75 students that register literally the day before school. So, and a lot of them have IEPs, and they're coming from out of the county. So what Chrissy Smith and Ryan Oyer have done has been outstanding. And I got to give a huge shout out to Shannon, our registrar. She is outstanding. And the hours that she puts in, it's amazing what she has been able to do because she wants to get those kids in. Most districts will say, nope, here's the deadline. You're not going to be able to get your kids in for, we'll get you in, but it's not going to be the right programs. But we don't do that because we have her, and she's phenomenal. That's pretty much my report. It's very upbeat. We're thrilled to be able to start the year off the way that we have.
Thank you, sir. Item H is item for action and discussion. We have been approved for overnight trips for the PV Moore High School cross country and the PV Moore High School band. And can I have a motion to accept? Mrs. Wood, any second? We'll take a chance. All in favor? Okay, we'll go back to item D, which is a presentation from Mrs. Ladd about the fund balance. It's all yours.
Maureen, as you're walking up, is this presentation spawned from the conversations that we had last year? Not you and I, but the auditor or whatever is saying that you needed to present this or something to us even though it was available throughout the year?
You're talking about the comptroller?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
This is, we have to have a fund balance presentation every year.
Specifically?
Specifically.
Okay.
And we do. It's interesting what they think that it should be.
Yeah.
It's basically the discussion.
Because I
So,
remember the
and
conversations
trying-
with him, I was like,
Yes.
we're very well aware of the fund balances,
Yes.
so I'm not sure what you mean she hasn't told us. 'Cause
Yes. Yes, they see things generally a lot differently than we do. But that is one of the requirements, and I do talk about fund balance every year. And I especially want to talk about it again this year. Number one, we're closing as far as our books for the 21-22 school year. The auditors have been in. We're making journal entries right now to close, submit our SC3s and all our forms to New York State Ed. And the financial statements are being made. So before the next meeting, the audit committee meets and they go over the details of the financial statements and then they'll be on the board packet for approval at the next meeting. So fund balance. It's essentially the difference between the assets and the liabilities. For governments, there are assigned categories for fund balance. They can be reserve funds, non-spendable funds, committed, assigned, or unassigned. There can't be any other categories. Why is it that fund balance is so important and so talked about? Basically, this provides us with a cushion for any unforeseen expenditures or revenue shortfalls that we come into in the year going forward. When we make our budget, it's estimated, and obviously it's done well before a lot of the numbers are even known. And that happens in state aid and everything else. It helps us have cash flow. A lot of districts and BOCES actually have to borrow during the year, anticipation notes, because the cash flow, they don't have enough fund balance to have cash flow. It assists with the property tax levy. We can use some of it towards that and not increase the levy. It reduces our borrowing and our interest rates. That's a huge one. We've had a lot of fund balance the last couple of years, but we've also finished all of the main project, the $40.8 million project, and the security project. and we've gotten really good credit ratings because of the fund balance that's sitting there. So our debt has some really good interest rates. It helps us fund contingency expenses and state aid shortfalls. The discussion is always how much fund balance is the right amount of fund balance. So the Government Financial Association recommends at a minimum unassigned fund balance of 15%. That's all other governments, counties, towns, villages. School districts are allowed an unassigned fund balance of 4%. So it's very interesting that ours is so low. Actually, the governor this year came out and said that they were going to try to have worked on a 15% fund balance for the state because they know that the COVID money is going to be leaving us just like it is for all of us. So our unassigned fund balance regulations are very low. So what schools do to kind of look at this as a whole, we add up everything, all of the unrestricted, the encumbrances, the non-spendables, appropriated, unappropriated, and look for that to be kind of in that 15% range. Fund balance is used for short-term and long-term planning. The unassigned fund balance is recommended to be at the 4% of the following year's budget, and that's there for cash flow purposes. The committed fund balances are essentially the encumbrances that are at the end of the year. So those are expenditures that are committed, so they're not in the following year's budgets. And then for long-range planning, we basically have reserve funds that we can put money into to help us in future with certain expenditures. There are two types of reserve funds that are available for schools. There's reserves that are formed under the education law, and these are those categories. And I put stars and the money amount of the reserves that we currently have. So under the education law tax tertiary reserve fund, we have a little $81,000 in change. And that generally stays there. Every 3 to 4 years, we'll get a property assessment. I can't think what I want to say. Again, from Walmart, trying to get their assessment down. That is one of our biggest,
Agreements?
yes, agreements, right. And they're one of our biggest owners as far as land assessment. So we always keep this here in the hopes that we can settle with them at not too much of a hit as far as our taxes. Other fund balances are formed under general municipal law, and this is where we have a lot more money put aside. We have the Employee Benefit Accrued Liability Reserve, it's called EBLAR, a little over $3.5 million. There are retirement contribution reserve funds for the TRS, which is the Teachers Retirement System, and the ERS, which is the Employees Retirement System. All of our employees are public employees, so they're all going to belong to one or the other of these systems. And then we have a Workers' Compensation Reserve Fund. Last year, when I did this presentation, we added money to both the ERS, the TRS, and the EBLAR reserves because we knew that our fund balances were high and we moved a good amount of money into the unreserved fund balance, or I mean the reserves, sorry. So I added a June 22 column here. It's not perfect yet because we're not closed, but it gives you an idea of where we're going to stand. In the year of June of 20, the unassigned, unappropriated that is starred, the 6.8 million, was a very high percentage, and as a board and administration, we made that plan to keep it there. And I think that's what you're talking about, Christy, like we knew that this was all here. We, at that point, when we were closing, we were being told by the governor's office that we were going to have a 20% state aid cut moving forward, which would have amounted to about a $9 million deficit for us, and so we intentionally left it there. That being said, that didn't happen, so as we moved forward into 21, we started taking the unassigned fund balance down, and at the end, we moved some more money into reserves. You can see the ERS and the TRS and those numbers going up on the restricted side. Now, this year, it's going down even more, and we're getting in range of the 4% on that unassigned number. But we also are taking down the non-spendable due to a number that was in there that the auditor or the comptroller's office is gonna hit us on. So we're moving it. And we put, well, I've got it in another slide, I'll go over it. So here are the percentages, just to give you an idea. The unassigned fund balance, the 4% limit on the third line, if you look across, you can see we're getting back down into the 4% range. And the 15% annual operating expenditures, we are getting back down into that 15% range. So we were high for a couple years, and we are taking the actions to move it into the appropriate spots.
And Maureen, I think it's also important that we put on record that everybody knows that most school districts purposely stay well above the 4% because there's so many things that we don't know about the governor's runs. And we didn't want to be in a situation, if you talk to a lot of superintendents, where they have to cut staff or cut programming because of a bad run that the governor's going to put out. So I know that they say plan for bad times. Governors always say that. But then they're not allowing us to. And so when the comptroller, when the auditors tell us, well, we have to, talk to your board members because you're exceeding the 4%, most districts do.
Right. And it's funny you should say that because this afternoon I was in Syracuse. We belong to a service all the state does. Basically, it's called Questar State Aid Planning. And they are the people that help us. They take the state aid numbers and all the formulas and all of that stuff, and they just get into it like crazy, trying to understand what parts of it are moving because of what changes, what's causing something to go up or down. And they had 3 slides, which I'll bring to us next time. But one of them was by the region and the average fund balance. And every single region averages over 4%. And some regions average like 14%. So it's statewide. You can't live on the 4%. It's just not feasible. This is basically the same data in a graph. It doesn't go out to 22 because we're not closed yet. But this is our Forecast 5 analytics. This is the that service that we have for the analysis service. So you can see that we're slowly going up, and that's at our high point, and we will come back down. And that's the fund balance. The different categories are the different colors. This is all of the districts in Oswego County, and Central Square is the second column. So it has the fund balance numbers. You can see again, it's only 3 years that we were going up, 19, 20, and 21. But then that line is that 15%. As you can see, we're well within our range compared to some of even in our own county that are running high balances in all of these reserves and areas. So I always think these are interesting. I love when we can compare ourselves to other districts and other counties. So what are we doing and how have we used our fund balance? A couple of the biggies are we have not had a tax levy increase in 2 years. That's basically due to the fact that we have fund balance that we're able to do that. We've also are decreasing the appropriated fund balance, which is the number that we use to balance the budget. This year it's at $3 million, it was last year, but the budget that we passed for the year we're in right now, I'm always a year off, sorry, it's only $1.5 million. And we've increased our reserves. And again, why was the fund balance so high over those 2 years? And it was us planning for the 20% state aid reductions that we were told would be in effect that never ended up happening. So I need to go over all of this stuff with everybody because the comptroller has been auditing us all year. It happens every 5 to 6 years across the state. Every district gets audited. They started in January. They're still working on it. They were here for about 3 months and then they left. They went through everything. Honestly, they're gonna hit us on fund balance and all the areas of fund balance, which really, I mean, if you look at the presentation, I put a big star and a red dot on it for them to see that we were not doing it correctly. So they've been through every area. So it kind of makes me happy they didn't find anything huge in any of our other areas. And so they always then go back to fund balance. So the items that review are all the items that I just went through. They're gonna make negative comments on all of them. So our responses will basically be this right here, you know, that it has been high, this is why, these are the things that we are doing to lower it. And so when it comes out, we'll respond, it's reviewed, it's put online at the state comptroller's office, and we'll go from there. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. I know a lot of you got phone calls from them, and that was the item that they were going to go with. And so when it does come out, we'll be ready to respond. I think we're planning accordingly. I don't want to make our fund balance too small, so we don't want to, you know, kind of toe that line, but we've got to show that we're making progress, and we definitely are.
Maureen, what happens? I mean, so they put out a report and say that we didn't follow the 4%, we have our reasons for doing so, what's the threat? They can't,
No, nothing technically happens. I mean, it's just,
it's their opinion versus ours.
yes, exactly. It is always online, and we have to have it on our website. So obviously, there could be community members or people that are upset by it, that think, you know, we shouldn't be doing that because the comptroller says not to.
And that's an easy rebuttal to just let any community member know that we were probably one of the only school districts to not raise school taxes in 2 years. It would be different if we were carrying a high fund balance and then we were asking the community to drastically raise the tax levy, but we didn't, right?
I think what we experienced the last 2 years is an exact reason why we would carry a high fund balance. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, and it's just like anything else. You're kind of, it's 6 1, half does the other, because, I mean, you can get yourself all, you know, then they run those fiscal stress models.
Right.
And
they
if
get in
you're,
trouble for
and
that,
if you
yeah.
don't have that stuff, and you come up that you're stressed, then that's put out to the public for everybody to see, and they're telling you you're doing it wrong the opposite way.
Or when
So-
they identify how many staff members and programs that the district has to cut, because they didn't carry a high fund balance compared to the ones that did, they don't have to cut anybody or any programming, and then they look great. So it's how you look at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can look at it both ways, always.
Yeah,
They
because
don't have a staff. They can't do anything other than.
No, they just give you
They just
bad
give you a
comments.
hint.
yeah, 'cause
Yes.
I mean, I talked to him for probably an hour, and I don't know if we ended the conversation very well, but I told him it was that I would take his audit under advisement, and that was about it. Because at the end of the day, we got a school to run, and we can't have the threat of the governor saying they're gonna cut our budget by 20% and have us not have to overall pay attention. I can't thank you enough for what you do, and all the finance people and the auditing, because it's a fantastic job that you do. I think it's a great part of this district and how they pay attention to money. And I know personally, I'll take his stuff under advisement, and that's it. And I have no interest in anything beyond that.
Thank you.
Great job, Maureen.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item I. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
And second? And that's Lori, and all in favor? Okay, and it is 6:53. Have a good night, everyone.